People pass you every day, in the hall, in the street, on the bus. They travel, they're traveling, wandering, moving, heading in every direction, always moving forward. It's impossible to know them all, to understand even why they go where they go. All I ever understood was that they went, and that was enough for me. You ever know when someone is, when someone will mean something to you? It catches you by surprise. You see a glimpse of something, a hand, an eye, a smile, and you wonder. Then there's a word spoken, something simple, too simple to end in something extraordinary, and you smile. Just a soft smile, something so very simple. Oh, too simple. When I met him, I didn't understand. When I met Edward, I couldn't imagine. But when he said my name, it was like the sky had opened up. He said it so soft, like it was something to be treasured, something to be wondered at, like a prayer for life itself. Mia. There are some moments in life where everything changes, where everything has to change because that moment changes you. And with that one simple word, I fell in love. Crazy, huh? Everyone said he was perfect for me, said that we were perfect together, said that he was perfect. He was perfect, and he wanted me, only me, and I was lucky. I knew I was lucky. At 1 month, my mother said she could see us getting married. At 2 months, he gave me a single red rose. At 3 months, we slept together, and soon after, he told me he loved me, only me, and that I was his. As we spent time together, seeing each other sometimes 2 and 3 times a day, he told me things that no one else knew about. How much of a bitch his ex-girlfriend was, how she was always sneaking around behind his back, how she led him on, how his mother ran out on him. It was my job to comfort him. I could give him everything I had, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I could promise him that I would never leave. I'd promised him that he had done nothing wrong, that I would never do that to him, that our relationship would be better than that. He'd nod, and then he'd kiss me. It was the first time that it was the first time that we fought. I can't remember what it was about now, but it wasn't important. He accused me of sleeping around. I told him he was being paranoid. I wasn't his ex. He told me not to talk about her. I said I wasn't her, that I loved him. He looked down, quiet. I never saw it coming. One thought just spinning. He loved me. I just stood there trying to make sense of how my world had changed, and so I turned. He called after me, commanding first, and then softer, then more desperate as I got farther and farther away. And then he said my name, just like he did the first, like it was a prayer for life itself. As he held me in his arms that day, he promised that he wouldn't do it again. And with the way he called to me so tenderly, I had to believe him. We were fine for a long while. He'd shower me with presents, flowers, drive me places, and be affectionate. I genuinely believed that we'd be okay. I believed that if I showed him enough love and affection, it would never happen again. It had been a long time since he'd hit me, long enough that it didn't sit between us anymore. And maybe that was why I let my guard down. After a while, we came to a silent understanding. He wouldn't hit me on the face, and I wouldn't tell. From then on, we had good days and bad days. There were days where he would shove me up against a wall or slap me, and it was almost a relief sometimes. I could feel the tension there, building up, and I never know exactly how or when he'd explode. It was a relief when it was over, and then I'd have a safe zone, a day or two after he'd hit me, where he'd shower me with gifts and affection to make up for what he'd done. It was so hard to reconcile this Edward and the monster that would lash out at me. It wasn't his fault, not really. His ex had really hurt him, twisted him around, but I could help. He'd change once he realized that I wasn't her. It was my fault, too. I made him worry. I'd end up being late, dressed like a whore, or miss his phone call. He loved me, needed me, and I was lucky. I was late one day. I was supposed to meet Edward, but the bus broke down. It took almost an hour for the replacement to get me where I needed to go, and the longer it took, the more frantic I became. "Don't worry," my friend promised. "Edward will understand. Your relationship is perfect." I didn't have the heart to tell her that it wasn't, that I had managed to screw up a relationship with the perfect man, that I wasn't good enough, and that I could not help him. I got home only to find him waiting outside my house. No one else was home. It began to remind me of the first time we fought. Angry words, shouting, only this time my words held pent-up fear. This time the angry words, the shouting, they were all his. It ended like the first time we fought. Or it started. This time was worse. I loved him so much. How could he not have changed? We were perfect together. How could I screw this up? I'm listening. I won't go. Hey, I won't leave you. It's my fault. What did I do? I know it's my fault, but what did I do? I'll stay. I love you. Why this? I promise. He loves me. How could he not love me? You had to love somebody to do this to them. When they found me, I wouldn't move. Couldn't move. He had told me to stay, so I had to stay. I couldn't make him angrier. It was my fault. I had to make it better, be better. I had to listen. If I just listen, I have to stay, had to stay with him. Have to stay. The doctor said I had 3 broken ribs, and was lucky that they didn't puncture a lung. Lucky. And with the broken finger, sprained wrist, finger marks around my neck, black eye, and split lip, I could barely acknowledge that it looked more like I had been hit by a car than anything else. I caught my reflection in the mirror, just a second ago, traced the swelling around my eye, the bruises on my neck. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me, nor the sheer anger marked on her body, or the brokenness of her face, like a face I had seen in a mirror a long time ago. Was I perfect enough for him yet? There are some moments in life where everything changes, where everything has to change, because that moment changes you. Little changes you never notice until you don't recognize the face in the mirror. You never notice how much until you turn around and look back. Lucky, they said. Lucky. People still go, moving forward, and I still don't understand why they go where they go. But me, I'm standing still.